Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, the weekend is here. Sports IQ. Larry Smith, glad you're with us. We get ready for the big college football weekend, NFL weekend as well. Lots happening. Obviously, World Series too. We got a couple of great guests, and by the way, coming up after a commercial break, I'm going to talk about today marks the end of 8 months that we've done the daily Monday through Friday thing. As you know, Tony and I have been doing the sports TV thing, sports broadcast thing for decades. If you combine the two of us, we're talking. Probably about 80 years between the two of us, and I'm not exaggerating. Josh, of course, we talked about well-renowned, the work that he does, just on the music scene, podcasting. He's so talented. But it's kind of a cool moment because we've kind of come at this. It's a labor of love. Love that it's growing. Love to get your comments. We appreciate all of that. But we also want to talk about in terms of the bevy of people that we have had on the show and our stable. I did some work last night, stayed up and did a little research. I'll share that with you in a little bit in terms of when you listen to us, who you're listening to and why you like our show. And when I give you the numbers, I think you'll understand that's why I tune into Sports IQ. It's why I make sure I listen every day because, boy, they've got some great guests who really are in the know. So we'll have that for you. In a couple of minutes, we'll talk UVA football. Virginia, the Cavs are out in California taking on the Cal Golden Bears. Ryan Weiner is going to join us in a few minutes from Cavalier Daily to talk about that contest. Still undefeated in the ACC. We'll get into that. And you may have seen the ads during college football Saturdays for the SCORE Act and the SAFE Act. Well, Victoria Jackson is joining us. She is somebody so passionate in this space, works at Arizona State. She's a former collegiate athlete, sports historian, and we're going to break that down. What is the SCORE Act? What is the SAFE Act? How are they alike? How are they different? Which one's going to pass, and how does that affect college athletics? It's a really good conversation. She's always great to have on the show, and that's coming up here later on here in the hour. Okay, let's get some quick headlines before we bring in Ryan. World Series Game 6 tonight. The story, it's all laid out for you. Toronto, they have two shots. It's Friday and Saturday to get the championship. They're third and third tries. Otherwise, the Dodgers must win two if they're to repeat and become the first to defend successfully their World Series championship since the Yankees back in 2000. That's coming up. Game 6 Friday night. NFL Thursday night. It was the Ravens over Miami 28-6. How about Derrick Henry making some history? 19 carries, 119 yards. He becomes the 17th NFL back to rush for 12,000 yards. So you can go ahead and just make your plans for Canton sometime in the next, about a decade from now, because he's only 31 years old. He's got more to come. But all the guys who hit 12,000 rushing yards in the NFL are all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Lamar Jackson also returning after missing 3 games with that hamstring injury. Lamar doing Lamar things, 18-23 for 204, 4 touchdown passes. And so the Ravens get their third win on the season. Can they come back and make a run at the playoffs with Lamar at the helm? Anything is possible. Some college news now. We've talked about the scandal and just the drama and the chaos down in Baton Rouge. Well, it continues. LSU's athletic director, Scott Woodward, now is out. Mutual agreement that he is done after the Brian Kelly firing on Sunday. He was the one who signed Kelly to that 10-year, $95 million deal that now has a $53 million buyout. He was also the guy when he was at Texas A&M who signed Jimbo Fisher to the deal that ended up netting him a $70 million buyout. So he's responsible for the 2 biggest buyouts in college football history. He's out. Of course, he was going toe-to-toe with the governor who's involved in the hiring process because there's no president right now at the school. It's a mess right now. And listen, probably the best job out there this coming offseason, right? But boy, you take this job, you'll get paid and you'll get all the love of the entire state. But boy, there is drama there. So do you have the stomach for it? Make sure you get a case of Maalox included as part of your deal. Woodward is out. By the way, he has a $6.4 million buyout as well, reports are. But again, all those things negotiated. We'll see what happens. Rose Bowl, they are suing UCLA because the Bruins are flirting with SoFi Stadium. Now, they have a contract through 2044. And Pasadena is like, look, listen, we spent $150 million on renovations. The city spent $130 million in bonds to renew those for improvements. UCLA is saying, we're just talking. We haven't decided anything. We're just talking. But here's the thing. SoFi Stadium is only 13 miles from campus. The Rose Bowl out in Pasadena is 26 miles away. But the Bruins have played there since 1982. I just can't imagine the Bruins playing anywhere else. I'll be honest, personally, the Rose Bowl, literally my favorite stadium in the country. I've got to go over to Athens, Greece to find another one that may top that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, they're saying, yeah, you ain't going anywhere. You got a contract. Speaking of not going anywhere, Matt Rule, he ain't going anywhere. The former Penn State linebacker back in the 90s, he's signed a 2-year extension, so he'll be in Lincoln through 2032. By the way, no pay bump, according to CBS Sports, and a $15 million buyout if he leaves prior to the 2026 season. Well, what's happening between now and then? The Penn State opening. So what this does is basically don't go anywhere. We'll give you more money, lock you in. He's fine with that. By the way, he's 18-15 in his third year now in Nebraska. 6-2 this year. The third year, always when he works as Magic. He did that at Temple and at Baylor. They host number 23 USC this weekend. But here's the thing: he is only 2-23 against top 25 teams. Hasn't beat a ranked team since his last game at Temple back in 2016. So Matt Rule, you are due. Huskers trying to take down the Trojans. Let's get to college football here this weekend. Obviously, as always, lots of big games. One of them in the ACC, Virginia is taking on Cal. Joining us once again on the show, Ryan Weiner, senior associate for Cavalier Daily. Listen, last time we talked, Virginia kind of rolling right along. They've won games since then. But you were saying in the break that this game coming up Saturday in Berkeley has you concerned. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last two games, and Virginia has continued to win with a lot of flair, but really down to the wire. And I worry that traveling, we had a saying, the game of inches. It's been the saying in the program this week, but they're traveling a lot of inches. This is not a home game at Scott Stadium anymore. This is not a short trip down to Keenan. This is a trip across the country, and you've seen teams struggle across the board going from east to west. And I worry that with the team having having a lot of games come down to the wire, I worry that they're not going to be able to pull it off for the fifth straight time, essentially.
Yeah. It's crazy to look at. Of their last 4 wins, 3 in overtime. Am I reading that correctly?
3 in overtime, and the other one was by a game-winning safety with 2 minutes left. So they have played every game down to the wire since the upset against Florida State, which, looking back, I don't know how much of an upset it really was.
Yeah, that's true. But still, they were ranked at the time, so let's take that and embrace that as an upset win. It's funny that I've always said, in football, you've got to be good, but also you got to have some breaks. And certainly this is one for the Cavaliers that the ball really is bouncing their way. And I remember you've seen that so many times over the years where teams, I think back, going way back, the 98 Falcons went to the Super Bowl before losing to Denver. That was one where literally, they literally had like a fumble, jump up into the guy's hands. He ran in for a touchdown. It was those kinds of moments, right? Same thing here. It's sometimes better to be lucky than good. Not saying they're not good, but luck helps too.
No, and I think objectively, if you look at this team, obviously they're ranked 15th. I think they wouldn't be favored to beat any team in the top 20, probably on a neutral site, but the ball's just bouncing their way. You look at what happened, the UNC game, they dropped the touchdown through the end zone for a touchback. They came up 1 yard short in the 2-yard 2-point conversion. Just things like that, where the game they're 4 plays away from being, 3-5, and they're also 1 play away from being 9-0. And this team is just one. If you want to watch a game that's going to come down to the wire, this is the team to watch, because it happens week in, week out.
Exactly. First time ever playing Cal. And so obviously first trip to Berkeley. Did the team do anything different this week? Getting ready for this trip? This is kind of the new norm, I guess, right? Year 2 of East Coast teams playing in the West Coast and vice versa. Any special plans there for a coach in the program?
So I think there was a thought of doing night practices like how Duke did, but because we don't have a bye week after, our game had to be scheduled before 6 p.m. That's part of the contract for the West Coast teams to be added. So our game's at 3:45, so 3:45 Eastern time. So if you look, I don't think they didn't do anything different in preparation, because in reality, it's the same thing as playing 3:30 on the East Coast. It's more just the jet lag versus, a 10:30 start on the East Coast, and they're playing really, really late. They're not playing late. They just have to deal with the time change, which you can't really prepare for as much.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking with Ryan Weiner here, senior associate with the Cavalier Daily, as we talk about Virginia, ranked 15th in the country right now, at a Cal team that is 5-3. One of those programs that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a bit, I think, because SMU made such a big splash last year in their first year in the ACC. This is a Cal team that I think would be fair to say has exceeded expectations this year.
Yeah, they're definitely a tough one to watch. And when you look, they have some really good wins and some very baffling losses. I mean, the win against Minnesota in non-conference play looks good.
Yeah.
And they've got a couple conference wins under their belt, but they also lost 34-0 to San Diego State. And they just dropped a game, obviously, at Virginia Tech, but that's also a cross-country game, so you never know. This team is very hard to read. They have a freshman quarterback who has been putting up big-time numbers, and they have a decent offense. But the defense is letting them down a little bit. The run defense, obviously, they gave up, I think, about 200-plus rushing yards to Virginia Tech last week. That's something that Virginia will look to exploit, certainly. But they're a good team, and they definitely cannot be underestimated down the season.
Yeah, you guys have got a quarterback, Chandler Morris, who's having has a shoulder injury that he's playing through. Only 2 touchdown passes in the last 3 games. How much is that hampering his play, and how does that change the Cavaliers' attack on offense?
I think it clearly is. You see, especially on low leverage plays, like when he's passing first and second down, there's not a lot of pressure. He's clearly not throwing 100%. On the high leverage plays, and he sucks it up and he chucks it. I think the game plan has to shift. He threw 35 passes against North Carolina. That's simply not going to cut it. It's not sustainable for him or this team. But you look at what happened last week for Cal, and Kyron Drones only had to throw 18 passes to put up 3 passing touchdowns and 42 points. And if you can get a game plan where you're still running similar formations, you're not completely revamping the offense, but you can get it so Chandler only has to throw 20, maybe 25 passes max. You shift some of that weight to Jamari Taylor in the run game. They can definitely win this game without hampering their offense. I think it just has to be a game plan switch, and looking at what their defense has to offer and what your offense should do to react to that.
Yeah, Taylor with 9 touchdowns, had the big touchdown against UNC. He and the Harris running back, I think, combining for 1,000 yards. Feels like maybe lean more on them. They're having good success with the run game. Maybe make it, like you said, make that more of an emphasis.
Yeah, the run game has been definitely a bit of a slump recently, but Jamari Taylor is more than competent. I think they just need to utilize him right. Far too often they've been passing on first down, which then kind of sets them up for some failure on second down if the pass goes incomplete and they're at 2nd and 10. But Jamari Taylor is great. Harrison Whaley is a backup. He's the current active yards leader in all of FBS due to his time at Wyoming. And then obviously losing Xavier Brown with the ACL injury is not ideal, but Noah Vaughn has come back. So you have 3 quality running backs, and Chandler Morris obviously has liked to run in key moments. So you have a dynamic running game. They just need to put it into action more and trust that it will work.
Yeah, no question about that. The Cal quarterback's name, have you perfected how to say his name yet?
Sagapolu Tele. I'm gonna
that's pretty good. That's my guess. Yeah, there you go. Gold star.
I'll take it.
Outstanding. He's a true freshman. Like the Bachmeier kid at BYU. Shown some nice poise here, but this is the first ranked opponent for Cal. Virginia coming in again, maybe a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they've got the number next to their name.
Yeah, I think Cal's definitely going to look for a statement win. They also have Louisville right after us, which is another big game. So they're going to look to try to take at least one of those 2, obviously. And when you look, with Jaren Sagapolu-Tele, when you look at him, he's a highlight type of player. He's going to throw the ball deep. He's not afraid to let it sling. The problem with that is that comes to interceptions. Obviously, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on paper isn't great. It shows that he does make a lot of mistakes, but he also can beat you. And this Virginia secondary is battle tested, but it's not great. They have a tendency to get burnt deep. And I do think he's going to be able to exploit that at least once or twice for some big plays.
Yeah. As we look at the schedule right now, again, 7-1, still undefeated in the ACC. Georgia Tech is the other team, of course, still with a 0 next to their name in the lost column in the ledger. You look at this Hokies schedule right now, and this lines up for you guys, the Hokies. I'm sorry, the Cavaliers. My God, you're going to play the Hokies end of the season. So I'm looking at that's a big game. Obviously, you do have Duke, Wake Forest next week. I know the coaches and teams say, "Oh yeah, take one game at a time." But listen, you got to be able to look at November and say, "Wow, this is right here." it's rare when you get a chance and you're a football team and you control your own destiny. And the Cavaliers are in that position right now going into November.
Yeah, and this is the first time since probably 2019 where we really had the chance to control our own destiny in the conference. Um, and I do actually think they are probably taking this one game at a time. Every single team they have left is either a very good team, very quality team, or a rival. I think, Cal, we know going cross country is hard, and they've put up some good wins. Wake Forest is a sneaky 5-2 team with a chance to go 6-2 in Tallahassee this week. That is a game that I've heard people. I mean, it's going to be a big game because it's family weekend in Virginia, but I really would be worried about it. And then going to Duke is probably the hardest game we've had besides Louisville. Um, Virginia is definitely like they can win that game, but they're not favored to win that game, I would assume. And that's gonna be a challenge towards the end. And then obviously Virginia Tech, Commonwealth Clash, anything can happen. Virginia Tech has dominated that rivalry in recent years. So Virginia's gonna be looking to make a statement win like they did in 2019 when they beat Virginia Tech to go to the ACC championship game.
Yeah, and that'll be at Scott Stadium too. Advantage for the Cavaliers there. The Duke game will be tough. There's no question. But 7-1 right now, 3:45 kickoff. It's on ESPN2. Want to get a quick thought from you with basketball starting up on Monday. The Cavaliers coming in. Have they righted the ship yet since the Tony Bennett resignation? I still begin every season thinking I'm going to see him on the sidelines and realize that that's not the case.
Absolutely. This is a completely revamped team. Ryan Odom has done a great job finding guys that fit his vision. He likes fast pace. He likes a lot of 3-point shots, and he likes dudes that are uber athletic. And when you look at this team, I believe they've got 5 guys who averaged 15 points or more at their schools last year. You pair that with 2 incoming international freshmen, Testa Ritter and Johan Grunlow, that are both, projected second round picks this past year that chose to come here instead. This team is going to be, they're not going to compete to win the ACC. I'm not thinking. I think Duke and Louisville are a little too good for that, but they're right there with North Carolina State, UNC, and Miami, in my opinion, for those next couple of spots. And they're definitely going to be there in March Madness this year. They're a revamped team. This is not the win 40-35 Virginia Cavaliers of old.
In other words, Tony Bennett, Dick Bennett, his dad, no longer in charge. They were the master of slowing things down, right?
No, Tony still shows up a decent amount. I mean, he lives in Charlottesville still, to my knowledge. Last year he was at a ton of the games. Obviously, his son still goes to Virginia, so he is still around, and he has a good relationship with Carla Williams, their athletic director. But this is definitely the Odom era now, and you look. I mean, Odom's dad also was a head coach back in the day, and they're running their style of things. And we haven't seen the game yet, but in the scrimmages we have seen against Vanderbilt and Villanova, it has worked, and they played well with good competition.
Yeah. Will the ACC be better this year? It's been a couple of down years as the whole conference has shifted from some of the massive legends of the game retiring from the coaching bench. Tony Bennett being one of them, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jim Boeheim. Do you feel like it'll be a little more competitive on the national scene and be in contention for a few more NCAA bids?
I think we'll definitely have more ACC bids this year in the tournament. Obviously, the bar is low there. It was only 4 last year. The problem with a ton of new coaches is some will work and some won't. But I think I have a lot of confidence in a lot of the guys that did get hired this past year. I think Jay Lucas at Miami is a great hire. Obviously, I'm very high on Ryan Odom. Will Wade, I mean, there's not much more needs to be said. He's very experienced. He's an incredible recruiter. He's got a great team at NC State. And then you look at what some of the other teams continue to build. You look at Louisville. That team is dangerous on the national level. Duke is going to have a ton of great freshmen. North Carolina, I don't buy into their hype as much, but I still think it's North Carolina. You can't take them for granted. And there's a couple other teams I think that could compete on Selection Sunday. Talking about an SMU who brought back most of their guys. Clemson simply because their coach has been excellent recently and has just taken teams well beyond what their talent would suggest.
Yeah. You talk about John Shire at Duke. He becomes the first Mike Krzyzewski assistant, former assistant to ever take a team to the Final Four. No one else had ever done that among all of his former aides have gone on to major jobs. Ryan, always good to catch up with you. We appreciate your time and good luck to the Cavaliers here this weekend. And, we'll see if they can march their way down to the ACC title game.
Thank you. It was always great to be here. And yeah, I mean, go Who's. We'll see it. Take them one game at a time.
That's right. Go Hoos. All right. Appreciate it, man. Ryan Weiner joining us once again, senior associate with the Cavalier Daily. It is number 15, Virginia at Cal, 3:45 Eastern kick. Eastern, very important. Like you just said, can't kick later. It's against the rules. It's on ESPN2. Okay. We've got much more to come, including our great chat with Victoria Jackson. The Score Act and the Safe Act. What's that all about? That's coming up still here on this Hour Power on a Friday here on the Sports IQ.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Another baseball note to pass along. The Nationals finally hiring their new manager, Blake Butera. ESPN says will be the guy. Only 33 years old. He'll become the youngest skipper in the majors since 1972. Frank Quisili was also 33 in his first season, managing Minnesota back 53 years ago. Cardinals manager Oliver Marmol, 39, the youngest major league manager this past season in 2025. WNBA news, by the way, today would have been the last day of the collective bargaining agreement, but both sides, the league and the Players Association, agreed to extend that deadline for 30 days until November 30th. With one caveat, though, the statement that they released that the players have the one condition they did agree to with this. They said the players can terminate this extension at any time on a 48-hour notice. In other words, if you don't come correct with something, we're out of here. So again, it's been very contentious. The players, said in their statement they felt they would be farther along than they are at this point. But again, a lot of massive money, as we've talked about, the new TV deals with NBC, with ESPN, with USA Network, with Prime, with Ion, all kicking in next year. So there's a lot more money there. The expansion fees are substantial. A lot going on. So we'll see again what happens if they can finally get something going. Maybe, maybe not. We will see what happens. A little NBA for you from Thursday night. Victor Wembanyama, 27 points, 18 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 block shots. San Antonio improving to 5-0. For the first time in franchise history, they beat Miami 107-101. The Spurs winning 4 straight to open a season 3 different times before, most recently in 2017. So the Spurs, Heat, and Kings were the only franchises never to open a season 5-0. Now it's just down to Miami and Sacramento, who've never done it. The Thunder also keep winning. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 31 points. Oklahoma City going to 6-0 as they beat Washington 127-108. Reserve A.J. Mitchell adding 20 for the Thunder. He made all 6 of his free throws and just been perfect, by the way, on 19 attempts from the line this season. Isaiah Joe, who missed Oklahoma City's first 5 games with a knee bruise, scored 20 points. He made 5 3-pointers for a team that entered the night last night, last in the league in 3-point percentage at just under 29%. But I tell you what, Oklahoma City right now, they have just been fantastic. They have been fantastic already early on. The defending champs looking like they're going to be a very, very hard team to knock off the throne here come the end of the season. Ryan Rollins coming back to his old team and bit them in the butt last night. Began his career with Golden State back in the 2022-23 season. Well, last night he set a career scoring high for a second straight game with 32 points as the Bucks withstood Giannis Antetokounmpo's absence to beat Golden State 120-110. Rollins, 13 of 21 from the floor, 5 of 7 from three-point range, just 2 nights after scoring 25 points in a 121-111 victory over the Knicks. Okay, keep it here. We've got Victoria Jackson coming up, talking about the SCORE Act and the SAFE Act, how it will affect college sports, NIL, all of that. Great conversation is next after the break here on the Sports IQ.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Okay, glad you're with us here on the show. We promised at the top we're going to delve into a topic that you may have seen some ads run, may have heard about, but chances are you don't fully understand exactly what's happening. And yes, it does affect the games you're watching and the student athletes who are performing for you on the weekends and soon here in basketball, all during the week as well. Victoria Jackson joining us. She's a sports historian there at Arizona State University. Also, she's the co-director of the Great Game Lab. We've had Victoria on before. We always enjoy her conversation when she joins us, and so we are so thankful that she's chosen to spend a few minutes with us again here today. Victoria, welcome back. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a couple of things, and this is involving the two things, the SCORE Act, which we've heard about as well, and there's also the SAFE Act. Now, we're going to try to unpeel this. You're the expert. You're going to help us out with this. So both of these involve NIL with student athletes. Am I correct?
Yes. One piece of both forms of legislation are very, very interested in setting a national standard, as they say, for NIL to preempt the varying state laws that exist.
Okay. So one, the SCORE, and we don't get into politics on the show, but this is political because we're trying to get some legislation passed. So unfortunately, we have to tip our toe into the water. But trust me, we ain't going very deep. We don't do that. Not today, not this day and age. We're not doing that. Okay, but the SCORE Act, as you understand it, you were explaining to us here in the break, was presented by some Republican Congress people in the House, and co-sponsored by a couple of Democrats. The SAFE Act is over in the Senate, presented by Democrats, but there is at least one Trump guy, Republican, who is supporting that. Have I got that part correct?
Yes, and I don't actually know if Cody Campbell, claims an affiliation with the Republican Party. So this is the person you were mentioning. He's the chair of the Texas tax system, and he is a person advising the White House on their Saving College Sports, President Trump's executive order. He also has a 501c4 organization called Saving College Sports, but he is vocalized his support of the SAFE Act, which is an interesting kind of thing we see more rarely these days, where the Democrats in the Senate are proposing legislation that actually aligns much more closely with President Trump's executive order than the bill introduced on the House side. That has been the baby and the pet project of Gus Bilrakis in Florida, a Republican, for about 2 years now.
Okay, so first off, let's just take that the Democrats doing something in alliance with Trump. That let's just let that steep for a minute. That's one. I make the connection to Cody because having covered the first Trump administration, Donald Trump doesn't take advice from Democrats. So we're going to put them in that category and just make there because history shows that just doesn't happen. Text me later. It's another conversation we can have. I can give you proof because I was there. I covered it. I'm not just talking. I was there in DC, people, and people tell me you didn't hear that. No, they told me I was right there. I mean, the person told me. Anyway, okay. So what is it that the SCORE Act is trying to accomplish, and how does it differ from the SAFE Act?
Yeah. So I think there's something we should think about when approaching both pieces of legislation, which is what people are telling the public about them and what the main objectives are from the perspective of the people putting forth the legislation. So if you've watched a college football game this fall, you've likely seen an ad played saying how important it is to tell your representatives that they need to sign on to the SCORE Act. And they'll tell you that, if it doesn't pass, women's sports and Olympic sports and the future of Team USA, all of these projects could die. Same language with the SAFE Act. Like, we need the SAFE Act to pass because we want to protect women's sports and Olympic sports. So that's what they're telling us. Anytime sports organizations go running to Congress, the objectives are often three things. The first we've mentioned, which is federal law to preempt, a patchwork of state laws. That's the language we've heard a lot on that front with regard to NIL. The other two things are limited liability protections. If it's a sports organization that's been getting sued a lot, and we've seen a lot of antitrust lawsuits in all sorts of forms over the past few years, that is one objective. And then the other is antitrust exemptions. And so the SAFE Act, both of them are trying to get antitrust exemptions, but in different ways. So the SCORE Act is trying to make it so that athletes will never be classified as employees. The SAFE Act has no language about employee status, interestingly. And this was a piece that was fought over a lot on the Senate side, just knowing from conversations that I have with those folks, Republicans were interested to sign on if that part was included, and it wasn't. And so we don't see bipartisan legislation being proposed on the Senate side.
Let me stop you there. So
Mhm.
Republicans will sign on only if there's language saying that student athletes will not become employees?
Most Republicans. I can't speak for all of them.
Sure.
But that is the
Okay.
consensus on that side. The SAFE Act does not include that language, but the antitrust exemption they're trying to get is super interesting, which is they'd like to amend the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 to allow the schools nationally to pool their media rights and sell them collectively. That is collusion. The schools themselves busted the NCAA's TV monopoly in 1984. The Supreme Court intervened to say that the NCAA was operating like a cartel in the way. And now, ironically, led by Cody Campbell, the Texas Tech, chair of the trustees there, is really working hard to do this. And his research shows that this would increase revenues nationwide by $7 billion. And so that's a lot more money running through the system, of course, to do those things that they're so worried about, saving women's sports and saving the Olympic movement. And so the SAFE Act is the one seeking the antitrust exemption through amending the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961, which gives the NFL the ability to do that. And we've seen how successful the NFL has been on that front in maximizing their media rights. And even at a point now where the NFL thinks that they might have undersold them and they'd like to renegotiate sooner, right? So that's what they're seeking.
Yeah. The money in this is just insane. So I want to stick with that since that's the last thing you've talked about. We've seen the massive contracts with the Big Ten. Well, first the SEC, ESPN, ABC primarily. What they do, that's a huge deal. It's going to make, again, we're talking possibly, I think by the time it comes to an end, 85 million per school. The Big Ten even more lucrative. They're predicting 100 million per school by the time that contract expires for all 18 organizations. The ACC and the Big 12 both have their deals that are much less, roughly 40 million per school. Although again, ACC's made some caveats for Florida State, Clemson, et cetera. How much more money can we get? I mean, so let's just say the SAFE Act goes through. Yeah. Can you explain how that would change and how they could make even more money from this?
Yeah, I think there's two main things I want people to think about when it comes to the monies and what the SAFE Act is trying to achieve by increasing those monies, but also trying to protect certain things. People like Cody Campbell really don't like how conference commissioners and the broadcasters with whom conference commissioners are negotiating media rights are essentially, by pursuing money as an after effect of that, setting bad policy. And Cody Campbell would like to take power away from those people who are business driven to a new entity. Probably not the NCAA, the membership association model he thinks has failed on this front, but another body that's independent and outside and doesn't have any interests at play to step in and adopt policy where there's more resource sharing across sports and also across all schools. And so even though the money is increasing pretty darn dramatically, we're not going to see it all go to power conference football, which is kind of what we're seeing right now in policy following business decisions. Yeah. So that's the one big thing I think is important to understand. The second piece of this, from my perspective, as someone who studied this history and knows this history inside and out, is that I don't think the SCORE Act or the SAFE Act address the fundamental flaw of this system, which is that we have a sports industry operating within higher education where schools are incentivized to spend. That's how you win. You outspend your peers. So it's an arms race, but with no cap on spending, like we see in other professional sports leagues. It's an unsustainable business model, no matter how many protections you put in place to spend in other places, because we know that just increased costs across the board. If you're requiring spending in other places, you're still going to spend on the thing that brings in that revenue, which is football. And so that's the conversation I would like to see. The other is that because this is within higher education, if we're thinking about equitable spending, I think a way to get taxpayers and the American public invested and interested in preserving a system that serves lots of people is to make our facilities, which have become exclusive and elitist, open to the public as well. There's a way to make our playing spaces on university campuses serving all of the American public and not just elite athletes and Olympic development. So that's the other piece.
Wow, there's a lot there. Talking about, again, with Victoria Jackson, sports historian at Arizona State University. Also, she is the co-director for the Great Game Lab, and we're talking about again the NIL space legislation involved. If you're just joining us, with the SCORE Act and the SAFE Act, two different pieces of legislation right now going through when they get back to work, they'll be going through Congress. But right now,
right,
this moment, unless something happens, while we're doing the show. And let's listen. That's a bigger issue. Let's hope they get that taken care of first before they take care of this, so we can get our government back to working. When the government's in process, that's what they're doing. Which of these acts, in your opinion, the SCORE or the SAFE, better protects those non-revenue sports, those other Olympic sports, if you will, and tries to make sure they remain viable in the future?
I think the SCORE Act purports to do that with nothing that shows that it actually will. I'm sorry to the people who think that that's the case, but I don't see anything in the actual language that does that. The SAFE Act comes more closely to it. But again, if we're saying that a college football player is the same as a college cross-country runner, is the same as a college rower, then we're not really serving any of those athletes optimally within a higher education system. And also, for those other sports, with an awareness of the global ecosystem that American college sports is part of. And so I think if we actually start to recognize the different industries that are being operated within higher ed, that opens up all sorts of new doors to better serve those athletes, to create new revenue and subsidization streams, so that the North Star goes back to being serving the athletes who are playing rather than defending various interests.
Let me ask you this. So we just had the House decision, and that piece went into effect back on July 1st. And of course, the legislation said you're supposed to share the revenue equally. We knew going in that was not going to be the case, and we're hearing so many stories of that not being the case, where the lion's share is going to the two big rev sports and a much smaller going to the others. Just want to throw it out there and get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Football player, and this is where advocates of women's sports, many of them, and I diverge. College football players have been paying for U.S. Olympic and Paralympic, in some cases, development for the past half century. And that was college football players' money because, the revenues they were bringing in, which now the schools are saying is the NIL, that is part of what they're selling to media rights companies and through ticket sales and through their sponsorships, a portion of that is now going to football players. And yes, they've held back, the NCAA we saw was holding back the economic viability of the women's national basketball tournament, which they did not allow them to call March Madness until this was all exposed. So I do understand that the business growth of women's college sports had been held back by these institutions. However, like athletes in Olympic sports in the year 2025 have it better than ever. They also have a better deal than they likely would playing professionally in domestic leagues in other countries around the world in their respective sports. And so if you're a soccer player in Nigeria and you're like, well, I could sign with Arsenal or I could sign with the University of North Carolina, and you look at the compensation packages and also how those pathways will serve you 10 years from now, going and playing for the Tar Heels financially is probably competitive, but then setting you up for life after sport as well. It still remains a no-brainer that that's the choice. And so when I see advocates of women's sports saying the House settlement is unfair because the rev share is, at some schools, 90% is going to football and basketball, it's like, well, yes, that is the business here, what those media rights and everything else, that's, I think, a fair exchange. But also, I think we shouldn't be taking for granted the system that is set up to serve women athletes, who are more likely to complete their degrees, who are unfortunately not going to be able to retire most likely and live off the monies they made as professionals. When they hit their mid-30s, they're probably going to need to pursue a second career. And so the degree sets you up really nicely for that. And a lot of the new rules being passed and the legislation being proposed. For example, the SAFE Act says there's a guaranteed scholarship for 10 years. What that means is if you turn pro and leave school early, you can come back and finish that degree with the school still, acknowledging that scholarship that you earned. And all of the great marketing and branding you did for the university while you were playing there. If you retire after playing 8 years in the NWSL or the Women's Super League in England or in the Mexican League, you can come back and still finish your degree.
Okay. It sounds like there are some great pieces to both of these. Look, we know right now in Washington, they can't agree on, grape or lemon lime bubble yum. I mean, they can't do anything. So, let's look into your crystal ball, as murky as it may be. Once we finally get the government back to working and back to actually working on legislation, et cetera. I'm not cynical, just frustrated as like the rest of us. I share your pain. Is there a chance that the two parties can it sounds like there is some bipartisan desire on this to come to some kind of accord. Can this happen in maybe 2026 that we come up with something that would benefit everyone involved?
I don't know about 2026, but
hey, I appreciate your honesty.
But I do think there is awareness now more than ever within higher education that what we have right now is unsustainable. Oh. And it was a nice kind of academic exercise 10 years ago to say there are alternate models and designs that we could be employing in the space to better serve young people. Because I think we're going to see budget shortfalls across many universities, because again, higher ed is facing much bigger issues right now in this country. College sports is a very small piece of what university presidents are facing right now. I think on their list of priorities, this is pretty far down compared with other things, but it's going to start moving up as we see, the numbers in the red going deeper and deeper down a hole. And a lot of general public pushback for funds being moved from some parts of the university to cover athletic shortfalls. Mm-hmm. What I'm worried about is the athletes who are stuck in the middle here, who are going to be underserved, because I do think that'll force change, 5 years from now or whenever. So a specific example really fast is that the House settlement, this was not something the athletes were asking for. This was something the legal team of the NCAA and the conferences were pushing for, was to set roster limits in place of scholarship caps. And why? Because if you look at any action being taken at a national level, it is often to try to get out of future lawsuits or to obtain antitrust exemptions. And so by replacing scholarship caps, which they saw were probably in the crosshairs for future litigation, with roster limits, they thought that they would get out of that. Roster limits are going to be proven disastrous because these are participation opportunities in an education program, and you're reducing them dramatically. So we're not serving the public. We're not serving, the sporting interests of our students. And we're seeing schools even coming in below the roster limits which were already shrinking roster sizes across universities. And to me, that's a tragedy because, for the next however many years, less high school kids who maybe are late bloomers are not going to have a chance to develop and thrive in the collegiate system and have that wonderful opportunity so many former college athletes like myself talk about being a life-changing experience. And that just makes me terribly sad.
Sure. We will leave it there, not because we want to, but because we've already taken more time than promise. But this is so good and so rich. And we appreciate the knowledge and the insight and your passion on this. And the fact you take some time to share this with us. Victoria, please, we're going to keep watching this. Let's look at the government going back again first, so we can actually have some movement on it. And we definitely will reach out and feel free to reach out with us as well to get this message out, because this is something we all should be made aware of and should be keeping track of.
Thank you. Will do.
Yeah, awesome. So you have a great day. Have a great weekend, Victoria. Thanks so much. Victoria Jackson joining us once again, talking about the SCORE Act, the SAFE Act. Hopefully you have a little bit of knowledge now and understanding of the difference in these, and understanding this is not going to be resolved anytime soon. Again, we have bigger issues, as she said, on college campuses and in Washington, but this is something, again, that's extremely important, and hopefully we can get some kind of resolution and for the betterment of the student athletes as well as the collegiate experience. Victoria, once again, she's with Arizona State University, sports historian, and the co-director of the Great Game Lab. And we certainly, again, are so thankful for her time. Okay, Sports IQ, we're back with more after this. Okay, college football, another weekend is upon us. Producer Tony, one thing we have not talked about this week, because Florida's had so many troubles, and with the interim coach, is the big game in Jacksonville. It is Georgia, number 5 in the country, taking on Florida. We hope this could be a competitive game. Georgia's played really well. But listen, the Bulldogs certainly have something to play for here. They've got to keep winning to try to keep their name in the running to possibly get into a berth if one of the guys in front of them fails for the SEC championship.
Yeah, you don't want to let up now. And look, Georgia's had some interesting games where they've had some slow starts. Things didn't quite click till the second half. They've let some teams hang around. You never want to do that in a rivalry game. And Florida still has some weapons. They've got a decent defense. They can make things tough on you. So I think Georgia's got to come out strong out of the gate and just take control and choke off any possibility of Florida pulling an upset here. Because look, there's a bunch of Florida players. Their coach is out of a job. They're on an interim coach. Their whole year is made if they beat Georgia.
Yeah.
If they win this game, everything else, suddenly doesn't matter. But if they win this, their year is made. So Georgia, take them seriously. Put the hammer down early. Don't be waiting until the second half or right before halftime, to get things going. Do it early.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's face it, 3 of their 4 losses are versus top 5 teams in the country. And then a loss also to South Florida. They were not ranked, but have been ranked since then and have had a good season. So, yeah, can't take this team lightly. The game we've all been talking about here all week and we're excited about, down in Texas, number 20, Longhorns taking on the 9th-ranked Vanderbilt Commodores. Arch Manning, he's questionable with a concussion. But listen, these Commodores right now, in my opinion, they are the story of the first 2 months of college football.
Absolutely. I mean, like we've talked about before, look, if you had on your bingo card Vandy in the top 10 in the last weekend in October, man, you need to buy a lottery ticket, dude, because, it's time to play for some of those big millions, because nobody had that. I guarantee you. Diego Pavia is just having an awesome year. I mean, right now, Larry, if I'm filling out a scorecard for Heisman Trophy, 1-2 is Diego Pavia and Haynes King down at Georgia Tech. That's my 1-2 right now at this point of the season. And there's a couple other ones that deserve consideration. Sayan up at Ohio State, he deserves consideration. But those 2 guys right now are running 1-2 on my scorebook. And so Vandy has got to take care of business. Arch Manning may or may not start in this ball game. Texas, kind of that caged animal. It's going to be a road game. There's going to be a lot of Texas fans out there wanting this. Will help the sting of some of their losses, the couple losses they've had, ease that up if they can get a win here against Vandy.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of other really good games. One of the SEC, Oklahoma, Tennessee, both ranked in the top 20. Cincinnati, the surprise team, sitting atop the Big 12 along with BYU. They're at Utah, another top 25 matchup. But you mentioned the other big story here. Georgia Tech fans probably said, hey, what about us? We're a story. Yes, you are, Yellow Jackets. They're in the flats. You are a story. The Yellow Jackets at NC State, only a 5.5-point favorite going into this one.
Yeah, this could be a tough game. NC State is not a bad team. They're a solid team. Georgia Tech's going to have to bring that A game, lean on Haynes King, let him do the magic that he does, running and throwing that football. But you don't want this to come down to a last possession game. You want to try to put away NC State early, get that lead out there. It kind of reminds me of this Georgia Tech 1990 team. They just kept finding ways to win, and under the radar. Suddenly on New Year's Day, they're competing for a national championship. Georgia Tech has a shot. those kids believe in Brent Key. They believe in Haynes King, and a team that believes is a dangerous team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at them right now, if they get past the Wolfpack, they've got at Boston College and home against Pittsburgh, 2 winnable games. And then you're in the ACC championship, and you're undefeated going into the showdown at Mercedes-Benz against Georgia, and which should be a fantastic contest. Okay, our moment of awe is next. At the top of the show, I talked about in terms of what we have done here in 8 months, and we realized we have had insiders from 51 different college programs on the show in 8 months. 22 insiders or beat writers from major pro sports teams, and that's not including everyone from CBS, ESPN, NBC, the Sporting News, Yahoo, SEC entities, and every major sport there is, every league, NFL, you name it, NBA, PGA, Tony Barnhart, Phil Steele, Danny Sheridan. It just, the list goes on and on. Thank you to everyone who's been here for 8 months. We're not going anywhere. Just want to say, hey, we appreciate, if you're wondering why you like this show, that's probably why, because we bring the goods. Okay, time now for our moment of awe, and it goes out to Brad Marchand, who is not known as a warm and fuzzy, right? I mean, he's the star player for the Panthers, has been away from the team for a really good reason, because a friend of his back in Canada, his 10-year-old daughter recently died from cancer. So Marchand left the team to go fill in as a coach for the team there up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, the team that he coaches. And so he's going to come back here this weekend. But what a gesture. It goes to show that no matter what you do on the ice, whatever, or on the court, on the field of play, no matter what you're thought of, we're all human. And so he missed the game Tuesday night, helped to coach his friend's team on Wednesday while he grieved the loss of his 10-year-old daughter. Our thoughts go out to everyone here. Truly a moment of awe. You leave us in awe. We leave you with another fantastic show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks to Ryan Weiner. Thanks to Victoria Jackson. Thanks to you as well. Make this a great weekend. We'll see you Monday here on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.